The stars above the border of the empire always looked the same. For the guards stationed there, it was a quiet post, filled with long hours and few surprises. Most days, the patrol ships circled slowly, scanning for smugglers or pirates. Yet one ordinary cycle, the sensors caught something unusual. A small vessel was drifting near the edge of their territory, moving with steady control, but showing no sign of belonging to any known race. Captain Ral, who led the patrol squadron, studied the screen carefully. The ship was plain in design, without bright symbols or marks of power. It looked fragile compared to the strong war cruisers of the Empire. His officers expected him to dismiss it as a lost freighter. Instead, he ordered a closer look. Unknown ships were not to be ignored. As the patrol approached, the strange vessel did not attempt to flee. Instead, it sent out a simple signal. No weapons powered up, no shields rose, only a message. The signal carried a voice that was steady and calm. It said in clear translation, "We come in peace. We are explorers. We mean no harm." The words unsettled the patrol. Most outsiders who stumbled near the Empire's border showed fear, rushing to escape or begging for safety. Others acted proud, trying to prove strength before being crushed. These newcomers did neither. Their calm tone carried no fear, no pride, only balance. Captain Ral ordered the ship to follow them to the nearest station. To his surprise, the strange vessel agreed at once. The humans, as they called themselves, guided their ship without protest. The station, known as Orden Point, was small but busy with merchants, soldiers, and travelers. When word spread that a new species had appeared, the air filled with curiosity and unease. The humans stepped off their ship in simple clothing, not armored suits or royal robes. There were 5 of them, 3 men and 2 women, all with steady eyes and quiet steps. They did not bow in fear or raise their heads in arrogance. They simply looked around with interest, as though walking into a place they had already imagined. Officer Darn, who was sent to meet them, tried to test their mood. He spoke loudly, warning them that they were in the presence of the Empire, the greatest power in the galaxy. He expected them to tremble or at least show nervous respect. Instead, one of the humans, a man named Arun, nodded politely and replied, "We are honored to meet you. We would like to learn." The calm voice of Arun made Darn falter. It was not defiance, nor was it submission. It was something else, something that felt stronger than either. The station guards exchanged looks. These humans seemed ordinary in body, yet something about their steady presence filled the air with tension. Inside the command chamber, Captain Ral asked the humans about their origin. They explained that they came from a world far beyond the known maps. Their ship was not a war vessel but an exploration craft. They traveled to understand, to see, and to meet. They asked simple questions about trade routes, about the Empire's languages, about the kinds of people who lived under its rule. What surprised the captain most was the way they listened. Most new species spoke quickly, trying to prove themselves or plead for protection. The humans spoke less and listened more. When they received answers, they nodded calmly, as if storing every detail with quiet care. The Empire's officers whispered among themselves. This new species was too calm. It was not natural. Some thought the humans were hiding great weapons. Others believed it was a trick. Yet when scanners searched their ship, no powerful weapons were found, only tools and machines for travel. At the dining hall, where they were offered food, the humans ate with steady manners, never rushing, never showing greed. They asked questions about the crops grown on the Empire's farms and about the stations built near stars. They spoke as if every detail mattered. Their patience unsettled everyone around them. One young soldier leaned over to another and whispered, "They do not act like lost travelers. They act like they already know they belong here." The Empire was used to fear and respect. Yet these humans showed something else. It was not arrogance, yet it felt heavier. Their calmness was a shield, one that no threat could seem to pierce. That night, when the humans rested in the guest quarters, the officers gathered again. Some laughed and said the humans were simply harmless wanderers. But Captain Ral shook his head. He had seen many species in his years, and never had he seen eyes so steady. The humans looked at the galaxy not with fear, not with pride, but with calm understanding. And to Ral, that calm was more frightening than any weapon. The next morning, the humans were escorted to the main hall of Orden Point. The hall was wide, with tall walls and banners of the Empire hanging above. Officials, merchants, and guards filled the seats, curious to see these new beings. It was rare for an unknown species to enter so calmly into the Empire's heart, and everyone wanted to witness how they would act. At the center of the hall stood Governor Lyra, the station's leader. She was a sharp woman with years of service. She had faced pirates, rebels, and strange traders. Yet as she looked at the 5 humans walking quietly into the hall, she felt something unusual. Their steps were light, their expressions calm, but their eyes were steady like stone. Governor Lyra began the meeting with a strong voice. You stand in the Empire's territory. This Empire is vast, powerful, and unchallenged. Many who come here kneel for safety, and some resist and are crushed. Tell me, humans, which path do you choose? The hall grew quiet, waiting for the humans to show fear or pride. Arun, the man who had spoken before, stepped forward. He bowed his head slightly, not in surrender, but in respect. His voice was calm as ever. We choose neither fear nor challenge. We choose learning. We are here to listen, to see, and to share. His words were simple, yet they spread unease through the hall. Some merchants whispered, too calm. Too confident. Guards shifted on their feet, hands near their weapons. To them, strength was always loud, shown in armor, weapons, or roaring speeches. But these humans carried none of that. Their strength seemed hidden, quiet, yet unshaken. Governor Lyra studied Arun carefully. Learning is not enough. Every people who join the Empire must serve. Tell me, what do you offer? Before Arun could answer, one of the women, Myra, stepped forward. She held a small device in her hand, no bigger than a stone. She pressed a button, and a soft blue light appeared, floating steadily in the air. The hall gasped. The light remained perfectly still, without flicker or break, as if untouched by wind or gravity. This is energy made stable, Myra explained in her calm voice. It can last for years without loss. It can power homes or ships without danger. It is simple to us, but perhaps useful to you. The officials leaned forward with wide eyes. Even the Empire's most advanced reactors struggled with long-term stability. To see such a small device working so quietly felt like witnessing magic. Governor Lyra did not move, but her heart raced. One guard tried to test the humans. He stepped forward and slammed his heavy spear on the ground. The hall shook. He shouted, "Is this all? Do you think a small toy makes you strong?" The Empire is not impressed. The humans did not flinch. Arun simply looked at the guard, then nodded politely. It is not strength we bring. It is peace, patience, and tools to build. If those are of no value, we will not force them. Again, the calm tone unsettled everyone. The guard, who expected fear or anger, felt his own hands tremble. For a moment, he could not speak. He stepped back silently, defeated without a fight. Governor Lyra waved her hand, and the hall settled again. She tried to press the humans further. You speak of peace. Yet the galaxy is not peaceful. How do you survive when others attack you? This time, another human, a younger man named Rian, answered. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. We do not seek attack. We prepare, we endure, and we wait. Storms come and pass, but we remain. That is our way. The silence in the hall grew heavier. The merchants whispered again. Some said these humans must be hiding powerful fleets. Others said they were simple wanderers with strange words. Yet no one could deny the weight of their calmness. It was not weakness, nor was it arrogance. It was something different, something rare. Later, when the meeting ended, the humans were given quarters inside the station. Governor Lyra remained in the hall, speaking with her advisors. These humans trouble me, she admitted. They act as if nothing can shake them. Not fear, not pride, not even threats. One advisor nodded. Perhaps they are dangerous. Another advisor shook his head. Perhaps they are harmless. But Lyra frowned. Harmless? No. Even without weapons, they make seasoned guards uneasy. Even without demands, they make merchants restless. If they are harmless, why does their silence weigh heavier than our armies? She looked again at the small device Myra had shown. It still glowed softly, without flicker, on the table beside her. The light was calm, steady, endless. And for the first time in years, Governor Lyra felt something she had not felt since her youth doubt. Meanwhile, in their quarters, the humans sat together quietly. They did not celebrate, nor did they show fear. They simply spoke in low voices about what they had learned of the Empire. Arun smiled slightly and said, "They do not understand us yet. But they will." And as silence filled the room once more, the Empire outside began to whisper of these new beings whose calmness was more frightening than any display of war. Days passed on Orden Point, and the humans continued to walk through the station with the same steady presence. They spoke little but listened much, asking simple questions to merchants, farmers, and even young workers. Wherever they went, they left behind unease. Not because they threatened, but because they never showed fear or haste. The Empire officials decided that such calmness needed to be tested. Governor Lyra believed the humans must have limits. Every people, she told her council, has a breaking point. If we see theirs, we will know what they truly are. So she arranged a public gathering in the training hall, a place where soldiers often demonstrated power to visiting delegations. The humans were invited politely but firmly. They accepted without question, walking into the hall as though it was only another lesson. The training hall was vast, with high walls that echoed with the sound of marching boots. Soldiers stood in lines, their armor shining, weapons at the ready. Citizens of the station filled the viewing seats, curious to see how the new visitors would react. Governor Lyra gave a signal. At once, the soldiers began their display. Cannons fired energy into targets, splitting metal into pieces. Armored warriors clashed with loud roars, their blades striking sparks. Heavy machines stomped across the floor, shaking the ground. The hall thundered with sound and light, a storm of power meant to show the greatness of the Empire. Most visitors from other species would have trembled at such a sight. Some would fall to their knees, others would shout praise to avoid punishment. But the humans did neither. They stood quietly at the center, their eyes watching every movement without flinching. Not one of them moved back, not one of them cried out. The crowd grew restless. Whispers spread through the seats. "Why do they not fear?" asked one merchant. "Are they blind? Are they foolish?" When the soldiers ended their display with a final blast of energy that shattered a wall of stone, Governor Lyra turned toward the humans. "Now you see the strength of the Empire. What do you say?" For a long moment, silence filled the hall. Then Arun stepped forward. His face was calm, his voice steady. "We see that your people are strong. We respect your skill. But strength is not always loud." With those words, Myra, the woman from before, lifted another small device from her pack. It looked simple, only a cube of metal with faint lines across its surface. She placed it on the ground. The soldiers laughed at the sight of such a small thing. One shouted, "Is this your strength? A toy again?" Myra pressed a button, and the cube opened slowly, releasing a clear white light. A field spread across the hall, quiet and soft. The broken stones on the floor lifted into the air, floating gently as if carried by invisible hands. The sparks from weapons faded into calm lines of energy, drawn into the field like water into a river. The loud hall grew silent. Everyone stared as the chaos of noise and destruction was turned into order. The floating stones circled slowly, forming a perfect ring. The energy from the cannons no longer roared but glowed softly, harmless and steady. Myra's voice was gentle. "This device does not destroy. It balances. It gathers waste and makes it useful. It turns storm into calm." The crowd gasped. Soldiers who moments ago roared with pride now stood speechless. The Empire, known for its noise and fire, watched something greater: the quiet strength of control. Governor Lyra felt her chest tighten. The display of her soldiers, though powerful, looked wild and rough compared to this silent order. She realized that while noise could frighten for a moment, calmness could unsettle for far longer. One guard stepped forward, angered by the unease spreading in the hall. He raised his weapon and shouted, "Tricks and illusions. They cannot stand against true force." He fired his weapon at the humans. But before anyone could panic, the weapon's energy was caught by the device. The bright blast was drawn into the field, absorbed and calmed until it faded like water into sand. The humans did not move. They simply stood in silence as the weapon failed. The guard froze, his face pale. He lowered his weapon slowly, unable to speak. Arun bowed his head slightly toward Governor Lyra. "We do not come to fight. But we do not fear force. We know how to meet storms with silence." The governor's heart pounded. She had expected them to break, to show weakness or fear. Instead, they had turned her own display of power into a stage for their calm strength. And they had done it without raising a weapon, without anger, without pride. When the humans left the hall, the crowd did not cheer for the Empire as usual. Instead, they whispered about the visitors. Some called them strange. Some called them dangerous. But all agreed on one thing: their calm was more terrifying than any weapon. That night, the Empire's council sent urgent messages to the capital. They wrote of a new species that did not shout, did not bow, did not fight, yet unsettled armies with silence. They warned that this calm might be a new kind of strength, one the Empire had never faced before. And in their quiet quarters, the humans sat together once more. Rian smiled faintly and said, "They tried to test us. But they only tested themselves." The others nodded in silence, for there was nothing more to say. The demonstration in the training hall spread across the station like fire. Every corner of Orden Point carried whispers of the humans who stood calm while weapons roared and who carried a device that turned destruction into order. To some, they were heroes. To others, they were a hidden danger. But no one could forget the way they had stood silent, steady, unshaken. The Empire's council on the station gathered in the high chamber. The tall room was filled with banners of the Empire, yet the officials inside did not feel pride. Instead, unease hung in the air. Governor Lyra sat at the head of the table, her eyes fixed on the reports spread before her. "The soldiers say the humans never moved when weapons were fired," one advisor said. "Even when the guard attacked them directly, they did not flinch. No fear, no anger. Only calm." Another advisor tapped the table nervously. "That calm is unnatural. Either they are hiding great power, or they have trained themselves to ignore danger. Both are frightening." A third advisor leaned forward. "I watched them closely. Their calm is not arrogance. They are not mocking us. They are simply sure of themselves. That is even worse. If they know something we do not, we may already be at a disadvantage." Governor Lyra listened in silence. She thought of the small cube Myra had shown. She thought of the steady eyes of Arun. She remembered the soldier's blast of energy vanishing into nothing, drawn into silence. The memory unsettled her more than the loudest battle she had ever fought. "Perhaps we are overthinking," one counselor said. "Their ship is small. Our scanners found no fleets, no armies, no great weapons. Perhaps they are only explorers with strange tools." But another counselor shook his head. "Explorers do not unsettle seasoned guards. Explorers do not silence a hall of soldiers. Even if they carry no fleets, their way of being is power enough." The debate grew louder. Some demanded that the humans be locked away until the Empire understood their secrets. Others warned that such action could turn them into enemies. The Empire had crushed many challengers, but something about these calm visitors felt different. Then a young scout entered the chamber with fresh reports. He bowed quickly and spoke. "I was ordered to observe the humans outside the hall. I saw them working on one of our broken engines in the dock. They touched the machine as if it was familiar. Within a short time, the engine, which our workers had struggled with for weeks, began to run smoothly again. They acted as though it was nothing unusual." The chamber fell silent. Even Governor Lyra sat back in her chair, stunned. Machines of the Empire were complex, often requiring teams of skilled workers. For strangers to fix one so quickly, without noise or pride, was no small matter. The young scout continued. "They did not boast about it. They simply walked away, leaving the engine running. They said to the workers, 'It is better now,' and nothing more." Governor Lyra's advisors exchanged uneasy looks. The humans had shown no fleets, no weapons, and yet their quiet actions were beginning to shift the balance inside the station. Workers now spoke of them with respect. Merchants looked at them with interest. Even soldiers who had once laughed now kept their distance. Finally, Governor Lyra raised her hand to silence the chamber. Her voice was firm but thoughtful. "We must accept a truth. These humans are not like the others we have faced. They do not fear us, they do not bow, and they do not fight. They move as though storms mean nothing to them. That is why they are dangerous. Because if we cannot shake them, then perhaps nothing can." One advisor asked, "Then what do we do, Governor?" She looked at the glowing cube still resting on her desk. It had been left behind after the demonstration, glowing with steady light, never fading. It reminded her of the humans themselves, quiet, endless, unshaken. "We will not act in haste," she said. "If we strike them, we may reveal our own fear. If we welcome them, we may invite something we cannot control. For now, we will watch. We will study. And we will wait." The council agreed, though unease remained in every heart. The Empire was strong, but it had always measured strength in noise, in power, in fear. Now they faced a species that measured strength in silence, in patience, in calm. It was a kind of strength the Empire did not understand, and that was what made it terrifying. Outside the chamber, the humans continued their quiet exploration of the station. They spoke kindly to workers, listened to traders, and walked without haste. To them, nothing seemed strange. To those who watched, everything seemed strange. And as night fell across Orden Point, Governor Lyra stood by the viewing window, looking out at the stars. She whispered to herself, "Calm is harder to fight than war. Perhaps we face an enemy not of weapons, but of silence." The whispers of the humans spread beyond Orden Point. Traders carried stories to other stations and planets. They spoke of visitors who walked without fear, who fixed engines with ease, and who turned storms of energy into gentle light. Some laughed at the tales, calling them exaggerations. Yet others listened closely, for in every story there was a strange weight of truth. Meanwhile, the humans continued their quiet journey. They did not demand anything from the Empire. They did not build armies or form loud alliances. Instead, they began small trades with neutral worlds. Their offers were simple tools that lasted longer, energy that remained steady, food that grew faster in poor soil. They asked for fair exchange only, never more. Planets tired of heavy empire taxes found comfort in these trades. Small merchants who once struggled now found profit. Even farmers in distant colonies began speaking of seeds gifted by the humans, seeds that grew in soil the empire had abandoned as useless. At first, the empire ignored these quiet ties. The council believed no real threat could come from a handful of calm wanderers. But soon, reports arrived that more and more worlds were turning to the humans. Not out of fear, not out of loyalty, but out of simple trust. Governor Lyra read these reports with growing unease. They are not building an army, she said to her advisors. They are building something harder to break. They are building trust. One advisor frowned. Trust does not win wars. But another replied, trust wins people. And people make empires. The governor knew this was true. Already, merchants on Orden Point preferred human devices over empire tools. Already, workers spoke with pride that the humans had walked among them. And already, soldiers whispered that calm could be stronger than weapons. The empire decided to act. A fleet of warships was sent to block a human convoy near the neutral world of Darren. The order was simple: show force, remind everyone that the empire alone controlled trade. When the fleet arrived, they expected panic. They expected the humans to flee or beg. But instead, the human ships stopped quietly in space. They did not power weapons. They did not send threats. They only waited. Hours passed. The Empire warships circled, firing warning shots into the void. Still, the humans did not move. They remained in place, calm, their ships like silent stones in a rushing river. The Empire commander grew restless. He ordered the blockade to continue. Yet the hours stretched into days. Supplies on the warships ran thin, soldiers grew tired, and patience wore down. The humans, however, never moved. They had stocked their ships carefully, with enough supplies to wait for weeks if needed. On the third day, one of the Empire captains whispered to another, "They do not fear us. They do not even see us as danger. They only wait." On the fifth day, the commander gave the order to retreat. The fleet returned home, humiliated. They had faced no battle, yet they had lost. News of the blockade spread quickly. Everywhere, people spoke not of the Empire's power, but of its failure. They spoke of humans who defeated fleets with patience alone. They spoke of calm that bent warships into retreat. Governor Lyra read the report with heavy eyes. She knew what it meant. "We measure strength in battle," she said softly, "but they measure strength in silence. And silence is winning." Her advisors argued once again. Some demanded war. "Crush them before their influence grows further," they said. Others warned against it. "If we strike, we may lose more than we gain. Their calm will turn every strike into shame." The council could not agree. And while they argued, the humans continued to grow. Not in number, not in armies, but in quiet respect. On one station, a farmer told his children, "The humans gave us seeds, and now our land lives again." On another, a merchant said to his friends, "They trade fair. They do not cheat like others." Even soldiers began to murmur, "They wait longer than we can fight." How do you battle patience? The empire had always ruled through fear, through loud power and heavy control. But now it faced a new kind of challenge, one it could not crush. The humans did not march or conquer. They simply waited, and the galaxy leaned toward them. As the sun of Orden Point set, Governor Lyra stood once more by the viewing window. She watched the stars, thinking of the humans who had walked her halls with quiet steps. She whispered to herself, Perhaps storms do not end with thunder. Perhaps they end with silence. And in the calm of space, the humans continued forward, their patience reshaping the galaxy one quiet step at a time. The calm of the humans was spreading across the galaxy. Everywhere the Empire looked, planets that once followed its orders now listened to human traders and engineers. Each world found them fair, quiet, and helpful. The Empire could not understand it. No fleet, no weapon, no command could match the influence of calm patience. Governor Lyra received a report of a new convoy traveling through the neutral systems. She immediately ordered a blockade. "Show them the Empire's strength," she said. "Let them know patience cannot defeat force." The Empire fleet moved quickly, surrounding the human convoy in the space above Darren Station. Hundreds of soldiers waited, their ships bristling with weapons. They expected the humans to react with fear or surrender. Yet the human ships simply stopped. They powered no weapons, sent no signals of defiance, and made no attempt to escape. They waited quietly, their engines humming softly, steady and unhurried. Hours passed. The Empire officers grew impatient. They fired warning shots, cutting arcs of bright energy through space. The humans did not move. One by one, the shots disappeared into nothing. The devices the humans carried absorbed and calmed each blast, leaving the convoy untouched. The soldiers began to argue among themselves. "Strike harder. Show them," one shouted. Another replied, "Calm is not weakness. Perhaps the longer we fight, the weaker we become." Days passed. The Empire fleet began to tire. Supplies ran low. Fuel for the ships was calculated carefully, rations were shared more strictly, and yet the humans did not act. They waited. Patient. Silent. Unmoved. On the fourth day, the fleet commander called a meeting. He looked at his officers, tired and frustrated. "We are stronger than them. Our weapons can destroy cities. Our ships can crush fleets. Yet they do not move, they do not fear. What kind of strength is this?" An advisor hesitated, then said softly, "Perhaps their strength is in waiting. We grow restless, we grow tired, and yet they remain calm. We fight, they endure. They do not attack, but they do not lose either. They are already winning, without firing a shot." The commander felt a chill run down his spine. It was true. The humans were not raising fleets or weapons, yet the Empire had spent days trying to force them to act. And in those days, planets that watched began to question loyalty. Neutral worlds began to see that patience and calm could protect and build more than fleets ever could. Finally, the commander ordered a retreat. The blockade was lifted. The humans moved on, their convoy unharmed, their course steady. The Empire fleet returned, defeated without battle, humiliated in silence. Back on Orden Point, Governor Lyra received the news. Her face was pale as she read the report. "They did nothing," she whispered. "They did nothing, yet we lost. They have changed the rules without fighting. They have shown patience stronger than our weapons." Advisors argued again. Some said the humans were merely lucky, that a real battle would show the Empire's power. Others said luck had nothing to do with it. "Luck ends," one advisor said, "but patience lasts. They wait longer than we can strike, and in waiting, they win." The Empire began to notice other changes. Trade routes once controlled tightly now showed small signs of human influence. Merchants and workers preferred human devices and advice. Systems previously loyal to the Empire began making small agreements with the humans. Nothing violent occurred, yet the Empire was slowly losing influence. Meanwhile, the humans traveled quietly, unaware of the growing fear in the Empire. Arun spoke with Myra and Rian. "They try to test us," he said calmly. "But they only reveal themselves. They cannot move faster than our patience. They cannot break silence. Myra nodded. Every action we take is simple. Yet every action teaches them a lesson. They learn more about themselves than they do about us. Rian smiled faintly. Perhaps one day, they will understand. Perhaps one day, they will know that calm is stronger than any fleet. Governor Lyra could not sleep that night. She watched the stars from her office window, thinking of the humans' calm faces, their steady movements, and their quiet confidence. She realized that no weapon could strike patience, no fleet could break calm, and no storm could shake still water. The Empire had faced many enemies, yet none like this. These humans fought without fighting. They conquered without armies. They influenced without demand. And that made them more dangerous than any war the Empire had known. As the stars sparkled above, the humans' convoy continued on its journey. Silent. Patient. Calm. And the Empire realized that they had met a power that could not be defeated in the usual way. The galaxy had begun to change, quietly, almost unnoticed. Worlds that once bowed to the Empire now listened to the humans. Their calm words, their fair trades, and their steady patience created trust that armies could not break. The Empire had grown strong through fear, through loud power, and through war. Yet these humans showed a strength the Empire had never faced: calm, quiet, and unshakable. Governor Lyra stood on the balcony of Orden Point, looking out at the stars. Reports filled her hands, distant colonies building with human technology, neutral planets siding with them, soldiers whispering in awe of their patience. The humans had done nothing violent, yet they had shifted the galaxy's balance. They have no armies, she said aloud to herself. They have no weapons ready for war. And yet, they are winning. Her advisors gathered, worried and restless. Governor, we have always measured power by force, one said. Ships, weapons, soldiers. And yet we see our influence fading. How can patience and calm change more than armies? Another advisor replied, perhaps they show us that strength is more than destruction. They show us how to act without fear, how to remain steady, how to endure. That is a kind of power the Empire has never known. Governor Lyra nodded slowly. She thought back to the first day the humans arrived. Their polite greetings, their steady eyes, the way they listened before speaking. At first, she had thought them simple. Now, she realized they were extraordinary. They measured danger not by weapons or numbers, but by patience and reason. Meanwhile, the humans moved through the galaxy as if it were their home. They helped colonies rebuild after storms. They repaired engines that had been abandoned for years. They offered knowledge freely, teaching workers to do what had seemed impossible before. And everywhere they went, people trusted them. No threat was ever raised, no demand ever made, yet influence grew stronger with every calm step. One evening, Arun spoke with Myra and Rian aboard their ship. The Empire fears what it cannot understand, he said softly. They measure strength in noise. They have not seen that silence can be louder than cannon fire. Myra smiled faintly. They will learn. Slowly, carefully. Every act of patience teaches them that calm is not weakness. It is strength. Rian nodded. And they will know, in time, that they cannot fight what they cannot break. The Empire attempted one last effort to regain control. A fleet was sent to intercept a convoy carrying human engineers and supplies to a neutral system. The fleet was large, armed, and confident. Yet when they arrived, they found the convoy waiting quietly. No weapons were raised, no warnings shouted. The humans had prepared, but only to endure. Days passed as the fleet tried to provoke action. Energy blasts flew into space, yet each disappeared into the calm energy fields of the human ships. Supplies on the Empire vessels ran low, and frustration grew. Finally, the fleet commander admitted defeat and ordered a retreat. Once again, the humans moved without resistance, leaving the Empire humiliated. The news spread across the galaxy. Planets that had once feared the Empire now saw the humans as protectors and guides. Merchants spoke of fair trades. Engineers spoke of knowledge shared without expectation. Farmers spoke of crops grown from seeds the humans had brought. Trust replaced fear. Respect replaced obedience. Back on Orden Point, Governor Lyra faced the council once more. "We have faced many enemies," she said quietly, "but none like this. They fight without fighting, they conquer without armies. And they do it calmly. That is why the galaxy now listens to them. That is why we must rethink what we call strength." One young advisor whispered, "Perhaps the humans show the Empire what it has missed all these years." "Yes," Lyra said. "They show that power is not only in war, but in patience, in calm, and in trust. That is a force no weapon can match." The humans themselves continued their work quietly, unaware of the fear and respect they inspired. They traveled from world to world, teaching, helping, and building. Every planet they visited found hope, every community found strength, and every leader learned the value of calm determination. And so, the Empire learned a truth it had never known. Loud power could command obedience, fear could control for a time, but true strength, true terrifying strength lay in calm. It lay in patience. It lay in the ability to endure, to build, to act without haste or anger. The humans, simply by being themselves, had reshaped the galaxy without raising a single weapon. Governor Lyra stood again at her balcony, watching the stars twinkle across the endless void. She whispered, "The galaxy has met a new kind of power. One that does not roar, but does not bend. One that does not strike, yet cannot be defeated. That power is human calm." And in the quiet of space, the humans moved forward, patient and steady, leaving behind a galaxy that had learned fear in a new way. Fear not of war, but of calm stronger than any army.